Alright, what's up guys? Wanted to make a quick video on how to repair a wiring harness for a trailer. So I was plugging mine in the other day, and this last little piece here broke out, because, they're pretty cheaply made. So, went to AutoZone, picked up a few things, mainly because I'm at my landlord's and most of my tools are not here, and I'm going to be hauling a trailer full of wood home, and I don't really want to do that without lights on the trailer because I'm going to be doing it at night. So some things you're going to want to do before you remove this. Number one, whenever you go to get the replacement, just make sure that the components are decent quality, but just find the cheapest thing that you can that has this replacement with wires. So here's what I got, but it was actually just a lengthener. So it was made just to give a 1-foot extension onto your already existing wiring harness. And so to buy this 1-foot extension, it was like $5. But to buy the legit wiring harness kits was anywhere from like $16 to $30. But if you just need to replace this, there's no point in buying the whole kit, because then you're going to have to come back here and undo this wiring and rewire that together, and it's going to be a huge pain. So what you're going to do is buy this extender, cut those off, and then just splice that together. Alright, so a couple things you're going to want to do before you cut this. You're going to want to take it and mark each of these wires, and that way you know where they go on the new harness. You know where to splice it. So I have labeled them just with lines. We've got 1 line here, 2 here, 3 here, and 4 here. And that way I know that these line up with 1, 2, 3, and 4. So whenever I splice it, I know which wire goes where. Another thing, you're going to want to put your heat shrink on before you do your soldering. Otherwise, your heat shrink is not going to be on. And it's really easy to not think that one step ahead. So now that you've got this cut off and your wires stripped, and you've given your soldering gun or soldering iron a few minutes to heat up, you can get ready to start soldering. One note, you want to make sure that you are using solder that has a rosin core, not an acid core. So this solder is actually made for soldering wires together. It passes an electrical current better than the acid core solder. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so now we're going to match these up. What you want to do is you want to get these fanned out and separated. Got 1 and 1. Now, I'm going to take them, push them together, and then twist. So that gives us a good solid connection. So what you don't want to do whenever you solder is just try to melt this with your soldering iron onto the wires. That is going to give you a really poor connection. So you want to get just a little bit on here to get started. Now, you're just going to hold the iron on your wires. You're going to allow the iron to heat up the wire. Alright, so as far as I know, I've done a little bit of soldering. I used to work in a lab and had to do some soldering on equipment in there. But it was always a lot easier than this, and actually that went pretty well. Got the wires heated up enough, I guess, that once I got the solder in, I was able to get the solder onto it, and then it kind of melted in with minimal effort. So, if I can get these wires adjusted so that I can get this other side. Okay, so that actually worked pretty well. I just sat with the wires sitting on top of the soldering iron for a couple minutes and got them heated up enough that I couldn't touch the solder to them and get it to just melt in. But once I touched the solder to the iron and got it on there, it melted in very nicely. So, and that looks decent. I'm okay with that. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this one done. It seems like about 2 minutes with the wires on the iron is about the right amount of time. It still doesn't get the wires hot enough to just melt the solder straight into the wires, but it does get them hot enough that when I put the solder on them, it will melt into them once it's already up to temperature from the iron. So that That's a good way to do it. I mean, you can see just how much better that turned out. Just letting it sit there on the iron for a few minutes, because that was my first attempt with trying to just melt it with the wires, and man, that is ugly. So just give it a couple minutes to let the iron get the wires hot, and it might seem like you're wasting a little bit of time just sitting around letting those wires heat up, but as you can see, it makes a huge difference in how quickly the solder goes on and how fast it actually takes, because that first one was ugly and it took a while. I felt a raindrop. It's not a good sign. Alright, so the heat shrink is definitely easier than soldering. Just going to get your heat shrink, put over top of these. This is why you gotta have it on before you get started. Just slide it on over your splices, and then you're just gonna take a heat gun is better, but once again, don't have one here, so take a lighter and just back and forth. And there you go.
So I'm going to do that for each of them. Whenever you are doing your heat shrink, you notice I moved it from where I had it at the beginning of the video. You want to make sure you've got it pretty far away from where you're soldering. Otherwise, it can heat up and actually shrink onto where you've got it sitting, waiting to be used.
Alright, and there you have it. You've got your new clip on there. You've got a little extra cord, and if you had the heat shrink and the soldering iron, then it only cost you $5 for this thing. And if you didn't, I think the heat shrink was $4. Soldering iron was like maybe 12, and this was 5, so that's still not bad. Hope that helped. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my videos, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.